brands want to be differentiated, but what they need to ground themselves in is who they are and their purpose. So when they do start to define these new experiences, it ladders up to that brand and who they are. And if they're able to do that, they'll come across far more authentic, it will feel more real, feel more purposeful, and then they'll be able to reap the benefit. It's really important that we build almost a red thread that exists across every touch point, so there's continuity. So every experience that I have, brings back that memory burn, of the brand and what that brand stands for. It's a feeling towards something that is actually often quite abstract. And so it's very difficult to turn off an abstract feeling into something tangible. But by plotting these journeys, we're able to do that.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Claire.
So tell me why brands and businesses need to rethink how they do customer experiences.
Yeah, so it's just something that I've observed, but over the last 20 years, I guess, I'm not that old, but what I have started to see is a design process that generally starts to deliver on all very similar outcomes. So over those last 20 years, the user-centered design process, has been key to creating some amazing and beautiful products. But generally what happens is, it is a process that is derived by creating the most seamless and frictionless experience for a consumer.
So hang on, what do you mean by seamless and frictionless?
So it generally means a product experience that can get you from A to B in the quickest way possible.
Okay, what sort of example could you give us here?
So a good example would be a mobile phone potentially, or a computer. How can I interact with that computer in the quickest and easiest way so I can get it to do what I need it to do in the most stress-free possible?
Yeah, which is what people want. They want
it is, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it is super important, and it is a good thing that it exists. But I do wonder sometimes whether brands now are missing an opportunity to find moments within that experience where they can stand out a little bit more.
And that's what you mean by sort of creating fiction, almost sort of artificially creating a bit of fiction.
Yeah, exactly. So, building in, a new ritual or maybe it's even just an Easter egg that sits within a product.
An Easter egg?
Yeah, an Easter egg. So an Easter egg is generally something that exists within a product interaction or experience. It's a little bit unexpected. A great example of this is actually, you're familiar with the brand Tony Chocolonely? Yeah?
Yes.
So they're a brand that is all around creating, or all around equality within supply chain at the production of chocolate. So very purpose-led. And they launch every year a Christmas advent calendar, but behind, I think it's either door 8 or 9, I can't remember, there is no chocolate. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that is to identify or to highlight that some people within the supply chain of, big chocolate, aren't getting equally paid in the same way or in the way that they should be. And so that small moment of, opening the door, not seeing the chocolate reminds you of that, but also reminds you that Tony Chocolonely, are paying their supply chain the correct amount.
So kind of a double win if it works.
Yeah, exactly. And they do repay you on the later dates with a 2 chocolate box as well.
Okay, right.
2 chocolate door.
So that's an example of a sort of creating a ritual in this way that can be potentially seamless.
Yeah, so that first way with Tony Chocolonely is almost a friction-first experience, I guess, that they built into that experience. The other way that I've seen happen quite a lot is a ritual-first approach, where you're designing a product or a product experience that really takes a different point of view to that kind of A to B quickest journey experience. Polaroid are really great at this. In a world where photography is so digital and instant now through our camera phones, where you can take 20 to 30 photos within a minute, it's almost too accessible to a point of view. I bet you if you went through your camera roll, it would show that the amount of photos that you're never ever going to revisit and look again is vast. Whereas Polaroid, because of the the experience that they've created and embraced, you have to buy a slightly more expensive Polaroid, photo print. You have to wait 10 to 15 minutes for it to print. But what you get out of it is a photo that is often far more curated because you've taken more time to consider the photo. It's maybe far more meaningful to you as a person because you've decided that you want to invest the time in using the Polaroid camera, and it becomes potentially a keepsake of something that is, very meaningful for you.
Well, if I was cynical, I might say that Polaroid didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And they've turned, a potential problem into a virtue.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, but that all comes down to the heritage of who they are and what they and where they've come from. But they could have also just sat there and gone, right, well, that's us done. But actually what they've done is they created a suite of products that enrich that process. So they have the smaller cameras, they have that you could then plug into a kind of printer that they have. You've got the all-in-one system. So, they've embraced it, and now they're actually kind of reaping the benefits of it.
So maybe they're quite a good poster boy for turning what could be a problem in your in your service into something that people are prepared to pay for, into a benefit almost.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't it's not just, digital photography where you see that. I've seen it a lot recently it's almost like the de-digitalization of life a little bit. We are so connected and ingrained in our mobile phones that there are these pockets of industries that are actually embracing a slightly slower experience. When you look at music and the resurgence of vinyl players, when you look at the coffee industry now, as great as Nespresso are, but actually what we're seeing is people wanting to engage in that process of making coffee in a much more ritualistic way. And it's happening, across many, many categories.
Saunas is one that I've been made quite aware of recently, that they're springing up all over the place. You turn up, they don't ask for you to check in on your phone because they think you might not have even brought your phone with you. So it's a sort of paper-based check-in system.
Yeah, I love that.
So maybe what will happen is, I'm guessing, if more and more businesses and brands adopt more kind of friction moments, or moments of friction, that will change all our experiences. I mean, if you take it sort of to its conclusion, it could change our quality of life in a weird way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's really powerful for these brands to embrace it. We know that the biggest driver of brand growth is differentiation, being distinctive in something. So if you're able to capitalize on that differentiation and build that into your experiences that consumers interact with, then you've got the foundations of creating something or being known for something that drives brand loyalty, a memorability, something that you want to discuss and share with your friends and your family. And that in itself is a massive marketing tool from a storytelling point of view.
The whole brand ambassador thing versus brand terrorist when an experience goes badly.
Exactly that.
So the savvy brands, and we've talked about a couple who've done it. Have you had any experience of seeing it happen first sight?
I'm relatively new to this role. I've only been here 3 or 4 months now, but when I joined, one of the pieces of work that the team showed me that kind of made me go, oh yeah, I've made the right decision in joining my new job, was the work that the guys had done for Aero Mexico. And Mexico is a beautifully stunning, culturally diverse, rich in materials, in nature, and they'd created a new dining set for their business class onboard experience that really resonated with Mexico as a place and as a culture.
How they'd managed to do that? Because, I mean, there's several things going through my mind. One is how you translate a culture into a tableware, and the other is practical terms, the hoops you have to jump through to get things signed off for cabin experiences.
Yeah, you're right. So we really have to marry up the kind of aesthetics, cultural element of the products that we're designing with the engineering functional aspects. And plane or airline carriers, they really do care about weight, because every extra gram is an extra X amount of jet fuel that they effectively have to pay for. But what the team did beautifully is they married up a material story and then were able to translate that into a weight-saving product. They were able to marry up a palette that takes inspiration from the cities of Mexico, whether that's the Jalisco and the terracotta that exists there, Oaxaca, the beautiful black clays. But rather than making it out of those exact materials, we're able to manufacture them from a porcelain that still kind of looks a little bit, or looks very similar to those materials, but has that weight-saving aesthetic. So it still feels and looks like stoneware, but is actually lighter.
Well, that sounds great, but I mean, was it worth it really for the airline? It sounds like a lot of effort.
Yeah, so the clients told us that it's increased their customer loyalty by a couple of percent, which feels promising. My favorite anecdote, though, is that they've actually had customers write to them and ask where they can buy the dining ware set from, because the customers of Aeromexico feel that it really connects with them as who they are as a culture and people.
Okay, I would say that's a pretty good measure of something kind of tapping into an emotion for them, which is what we're trying to talk about here. Yeah, interesting. Okay. So that's a good example of where you've kind of built in a ritualistic experience and engaged on a kind of an emotional level for a business. How is it happening? How are businesses doing this as a rule?
I think it starts with brand, right? It starts with defining who you are and what you are as an organization. It's almost your purpose. But then I think it's really important to define what you want people to feel when they interact with you. So we call them emotional targets. And then what we're able to do is work with a business or brand and look at the many spread of touch points that customers have with your organization. And we're able to work out at what different interaction points do we want to hit certain specific emotions. It's really important that we build almost a red thread that exists across every touch point. So there's continuity. So every experience that I have brings back that memory burn of the brand and what that brand stands for.
Well, that sounds quite labor intensive to me.
Yeah, but it has to be, because businesses are generally very complex and we have to work through all those different scenarios and help them plan for every different interaction. But it's proven to work. What I find quite interesting is when you ask people what is a brand to them, all it is a feeling. Yeah, it's like an acknowledgement of it's a feeling towards something that is actually often quite abstract, and so it's very difficult to turn off an abstract feeling into something tangible. But by plotting these journeys, we're able to do that.
And then it's the execution. It's spotting the moment.
Yeah.
Tying that in with an emotion that you want them to have, a kind of emotional response that you want, and then working out what the execution is to kind of generate that response, if that doesn't sound too scientific.
It is exactly that, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'll be applying for a job. Mm-hmm. So what are the risks of not doing this? I can think, I don't know about you, but I can think of a few, particularly brands that spring to mind are in the kind of luxury sector, where they've gone all out to kind of tap into a certain emotion among their customers, or more importantly, potential customers, and it's backfired. You know, they haven't read the room, or they've misread the room, and then they've created a bigger problem for themselves. I don't know if that's something you've spotted.
Yeah. I think what you get is brands want to be differentiated and but they also want to follow certain trends or so on. But what they need to ground themselves in is who they are and their purpose. So when they do start to define these new experiences, it ladders up to that brand and who they are. And if they're able to do that, they'll come across far more authentic. It will feel more real, feel more purposeful, and then they'll be able to reap the benefits.
Yeah, that's fine if you like who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of a couple who it seems like they don't like who they are at the moment, and so they tried to sort of become something else.
Yeah, I like that bravery actually.
You do?
Yeah, and I think I think if you are trying to shift who you are because of, you know, your business isn't performing in the way that you want it to do, be brave. You know that it's going to be a 3 to 5 year transition, but as long as you've set yourself up with the strategies in place, I think they'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting from your point of view. If you're trying to identify emotions when the brand itself is in a period of transition at the same time, that's quite a challenge, I imagine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sometimes you're almost, they call it stargazing, you're trying to predict the future a little bit. Yeah, it is a challenge, but if you need to be decisive, in who you are and what you stand for. And once you have defined that, you then need to be very disciplined in then executing to those emotions.
So sort of what you're saying, maybe the courage of your conviction.
Yeah.
Your new conviction.
Yeah, I don't think you need to run back to who you are as quickly as some of the brands do.
Okay. So customer experiences, we've kind of moved on from the notion of customer experience, haven't we? That seems a bit restrictive in a way. And what you're talking more is experiences that are identified through emotional touch points. So if that's where we are now, what does that mean? If it's done really well for a business and they kind of follow your rules or get it right in another way, what could that mean for a business?
Yeah, so I think if it's done well, they'll be able to maintain a loyal existing customer base that they have, but then also build out those new brand ambassadors that helps them grow as an organization. I think over the next 10 years, I think the brands that will be successful are the ones that move away from only looking at a user-centered design process and actually take a bit more of a human enrichment process forward, or design process forward. And they start to think about the products and the experiences that they create in a way that can positively benefit us as people.
So brands that want to take that leap and really reconsider how they think about their customers' experiences, where do they go next?
So I think brands need to start by defining the moments where they think they can have a significant impact. The second is then to identify the emotions that can be applied to those moments. And from there, you're able to create these experiences that can really be ownable for a brand and that can help them kind of gain fame.
Jack, it's been really interesting talking to you today. Thanks a lot for your time.
No, thank you, Claire. It's been great.